Welcome to Winter Views, Series 1, Episode 10. I am your host, Katherine Silva, Kat for short, and I'm a dark fiction author from Maine. Tonight we are discussing apocalyptic horror in our second Redux episode, and we have with us fellow New England author Elaine Pascale this evening. Elaine, how are you?
I am very well, and I'm doing well because I'm no longer in New England.
Oh!
I'm an expat. I moved to Florida.
Oh, man!
But I still belong. They haven't kicked me out of New England Horror Writers.
Well, there's a few people who are not in New England anymore that are in
Well,
the
I
New
was
England
open
Horror
about it. I
Writers,
was
so...
transparent, and they said it was okay. They weren't going to... Well, they were going to watch my behavior. And, you know... I couldn't get the boot, but...
Well, I mean, I think there's got to be some extenuating circumstances when it comes to being involved with New England Horror Writers, because there's definitely, like, I so far have just assumed that everybody was still in New England when I had people sign up for the event, but so far John Booya is in Canada, and then there's Tom Deedy, who is in Arizona, I think now.
I believe so, yeah.
And so you are certainly not the first one on this program that I have
And I
made.
had 30 years in New England. I had
Yeah.
3 decades. I did my tours of duty.
Yeah. It's a long time.
I can retire.
And I'm sure that it's a lot warmer and nicer down there right now.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah. It was icy and cold and foggy here today.
No, thank you.
So as I mentioned before, tonight's subject is apocalyptic horror. We've had previous discussions on the subject in the last 2 weeks with both authors Doug Rinaldi and Nick A. Zano III. If you have missed those episodes, you can find them on my YouTube channel. All of the older episodes of Winter Views will be available, save for one that we had a technical issue with that we are rescheduling, and hope to have to everybody in April, hopefully. That would be the best option. But moving on, I'd like to start off the evening by asking you, what's your inspiration when it comes to writing apocalyptic horror?
You know, it's funny. When you and I were first discussing my coming on to talk about apocalyptic horror, I felt I was coming on as a scholar. You know, as a connoisseur of apocalyptic horror. I've taught dystopian fiction. I've taught a course called End of the World. You know, I've really done it from scholarly perspective. And I thought, wait a minute, I do write apocalyptic horror. I just have never really thought of myself that way. So thank you for bringing that to light for me. You know, my first collection of short stories that I sold was called If Nothing Else Eve, We've Enjoyed the Fruit, and it's about a dystopian society following a gender war. And the frame, it's a bunch of stories collected, but the frame is these fruit tell this woman, hey, you got to go back and take care of the apple. It all started with that apple in the garden. That's where everything started to go wrong. So that's an apocalyptic. And then I wrote The Bloodlights, which is the zombie apocalypse. I've written many zombie apocalypse stories, even though I'm not a huge zombie fan. I do well with those. But I think my relationship with apocalyptic, my interest in it, I approach horror from a cathartic, I use it as catharsis. I use it as an anxiety reducer. I love when I'm really stressed out to watch a scary movie. It makes me feel better. And there's some relationship there with the apocalypse and thinking through, well, what would be my plan in this situation, right? It's so high stakes. It's so crazy. What would I do? How would I get out of it? And I'm a person who, whenever we do something, I'm always like, okay, what's plan B and C, just in case plan A falls through. So I like having plans in my back pocket. And watching or writing or reading or thinking about these situations, I find it sort of anxiety reducing to walk myself through a plan. And it sort of reminds me of like after 9/11. I mean, I never liked flying anyway. Many of us don't like flying. I remember after 9/11, a lot of us saying, okay, what would I do? What would I do in that situation? Well, I'd take my tray and I'd break it. We all had these plans. Whether they work or not, it just sort of helped with the anxiety to feel like I know what I would do in that situation. I've got it rehearsed in my head.
Yeah.
So I do, I think that's why I sort of gravitate toward it and enjoy it.
Yeah, it makes sense to. It's a way to de-escalate panic, I think. And I come from a very similar place while writing horror or watching horror. It just somehow eases anxiety. I don't know if it's partially like you're displacing some of that anxiety by being like, oh, this person's in trouble over here, and it's not me, but or as you're writing, you've got your characters are in trouble, and sort of writing them out of trouble is kind of cathartic too. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So when you are creating your apocalypse, your event, as it will, or your society that happens afterward, how do you make it believable?
Well, those are two different things, right?
Yeah.
So the event, I'm not a science fiction writer, I'm a horror writer. So I will pepper the event with enough. I know enough that I can be like, okay, these zombies is because of a toxoplasma. And, this is what toxoplasmas do. But I give just enough that I sound like I know what I'm talking about, but not enough that someone reading is going to go, hey, that's not what a toxoplasma is. I don't give them enough to really, science nerd out on it, but enough. My focus is more on the horror aspect of it, that, oh my God, there's these zombies coming. What do we do? How do we deal with this? How do we get out of this? How do we survive? That's more my focus, and the cause is more of the backstory. It's not in the forefront.
Okay.
But then the dystopian society, for that, I feel like there's a lot of freedom there.
Sure.
Because we've not been there. I mean, sure, people could say, like you have a big flood, and people in Louisiana could say, I lived through Katrina, I know what a flood's like. Yeah, you do know what a flood's like, but we don't really know what it's like sometimes to be in these situations. So that gives you, as a writer, a lot of freedom to play around, especially if you're creating a new society afterwards, and what happens, and who's in charge, and what type of food they eat, and weaponry. It gives you a lot of flexibility, I think.
Yep, true. So when you're writing your apocalyptic fiction, are you pulling, say, from like a natural, like the thought of people being displaced by natural disasters and things like that is certainly something that you could, I guess, get some believable content from otherwise, but I'm not as familiar with your fiction. Are you sort of having a little more fun with it in sort of keeping things a little lighter, or are you going very grim and sort of like heavy in your fiction?
I do both.
Okay.
I do both. I think maybe my earlier stuff was probably grimmer, and my more recent stuff might be a little bit lighter, and I have no idea why. Maybe, again, I left New England, so I'm lighter and happier. I don't know. I do both. I enjoy, like, dark humor, black comedy. I enjoy that kind of, like, mesh of horror and silliness, because, again, it alleviates the tension. It helps. But I do have some things that are quite grim. In terms of, do I pull from like natural disasters and things? Not so much. Okay. I tend to do like feminist horror. That's okay. I think if you were to ask people who've read my stuff, like, what does she do? I would think that's what people would say. I do more feminist horror, but I love my monsters. I love. Okay. I'm I'm a creature feature girl. I
Nice.
love that. Yeah, I love monsters. I love them all. I love all of them. I'm really into like obscure monsters, but I do love
Nice.
my vampires too. I'm a big vampire
Yep.
fan.
Me too.
Um, yeah, so that's sort of where I come from.
Nice. Okay. So in your
Which is the world. Like if you think
yeah.
about like 30 Days of Night, we don't consider that
Yes.
an apocalyptic film, but for those people, it certainly
It
is.
it
They are
is
cut off from everything.
it's on a small scale, but it's certainly they're overtaking the town, which is
Their world is ending. Those
yeah.
people, their
Yeah.
world is ending.
Um have you done any apocalyptic fiction besides zombies? Have you done a lot of like monsters ending the world besides zombies?
Monsters, monsters. I'm trying to think if I've done anything that's really environmental or anything like that. No, it's mostly monsters.
Okay.
Mostly monsters, yeah.
I'd
Yeah,
love
that's
to
where my
know
heart is.
I'd love to know what other kinds of monsters you've done in your fiction.
Well, there's some that you might not even know of, like marsh people and different kinds. Like some of them I've invented. They're just beasties.
Okay.
And then yeah, I do like I said, like my vampires, zombies. Zombies are an easy sale, and I don't know why, but they are.
Oh, they're a pretty well-rounded. Zombie apocalypse is definitely a more well-known type of apocalyptic fiction. So it makes sense. It's scary.
Oh yeah, it can be. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, in your stuff, are you doing your slow-moving zombies or are you doing the fast
They're fast,
zombies?
and they're
Okay.
often like in the bloodlights. And I do have another story. I have one about Roanoke. Roanoke was overtaken by zombies. That's what happened to the lost
Oh,
colony.
okay.
But in the bloodlights and in that story as well, the women are afflicted. And what I was most interested in, especially in the Bloodlight, well, kind of what was going on at the time when I was writing the Bloodlights was like Doritos was trying to come out with women-friendly Doritos that aren't as
What?
noisy and don't leave. Yeah, they don't leave the stuff on your fingers, and you can eat them in a demure, petite little way. And I started thinking about women's relationship to hunger and how in our society, women aren't supposed to be hungry, whether that means for food or whether that means for sex or power. Like we're
Yeah.
supposed to keep our hungers hidden. And what if you have these women who their hunger is for flesh, like just to
Hmm.
attack people and rip them apart when they're seen as demure and
Yeah.
sweet, and they're supposed to keep sweet. That's sort of where my interest with zombies is.
Yeah. That's really cool. I like that take on it. Also, my respect for Doritos has gone down a bit after learning about that marketing scheme. Um,
I'm a messy eater. I really am,
yeah,
and
me
I'm
too.
not going to apologize for it.
Like, it just,
I get right in that bag. I
yeah,
really
me
do.
too.
Like, pour it down my throat. Yeah, no shame.
Ah, yeah, that's so funny. Uh, um, so I'm curious about your Roanoke book. Did
That was
you,
a short. That was a story, and
okay.
it was originally published in a collection called Zombie Shambling Toward. I think it was Shambling Toward History. I think they were a lot of historical stories, but it's also going to be. I have a collection coming out called The Language of Crows, and it'll be reprinted there.
Oh, cool.
So the women in the colony are very disillusioned and disappointed by the men who put them on a boat and brought them here and told them everything was going to be great in the new world, and it wasn't. And they were starving and they were dying, and the natives taught the women a chant that put a curse on them.
Hmm.
And then they attack everybody in the colony.
Interesting. Huh. Cool. Neat that it's getting republished too. I'll definitely be on the lookout for that. Um, And then in terms of the sort of feminist, was the one that you were talking about before, your idea of doing a more feminist, the Bloodlight, is that a book?
That's a book, yeah.
Okay.
It's available on Amazon.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. We'll put that one also in the list.
Yeah, and I'll be doing a reading from that in May. I've never read from that book before.
Oh.
It was published a few years ago, and I was asked to do a reading in May, and I thought, why not do that one? I haven't done that one yet. Just a little piece of it.
Cool. Is that going to be a recorded reading by chance?
Yes. Yeah, I'll be posting about that on social media.
Nice.
So keep your eye out.
Yes, everybody keep your eye out for that. It's going to be awesome. So, let's see. Where am I? How about, let's see. What's your favorite thing when you are world building, say, for an apocalypse story? What's your favorite thing to create? Is it creating the monsters? Is it creating the setting?
I think I'm really interested in the society after a society crumbles.
Okay.
When the rules are gone, when the authority's gone, and I know this is unpopular, but I'm going to say Stephen King's Under the Dome. Nobody likes that, but come fight me. I liked it because it was just this nice little microcosm. Not the series, the book, not the TV show. That was painful. The book, because there's this nice microcosm of as diverse as King can get, but just these different social groups trapped together. What happens? Who rises to the top? Who? And of course, in horror and in dystopian society, the evil often rises to the top and takes control and makes it, think of like the Hunger Games, that sort of thing. So I find that really interesting. I also find it contrary to what we've seen in like 9/11, where people run into buildings that are falling apart to save strangers, and the Boston Marathon bombing, where people ran into the fray, the bombing, to grab people and people they didn't know, people they had no affection for, just because it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I tend to feel like in an apocalypse, many of us will do the right thing and try to help each other. But there are going to be those people who will take advantage of that situation, and that's kind of where I get interested. Like, who's jockeying for position?
Yeah.
Instead of just looking at survival, who's looking at, hey, what can I get from this on top of it?
Yeah.
That's interesting to me.
Nice. Yeah, I think one of the things we haven't talked as much about on Winter Views is definitely that dystopian society. I think in our previous interviews we've talked a lot about just the actual like event itself and writing through what's sort of happening point to point to point during the apocalypse. But it's definitely interesting to think about what becomes of people after the fact, and sort of how their baser instincts take hold. And so, yes,
and how the trauma affects them. Now they're living in trauma.
Yep.
What does that do?
So I guess this leads me to my next question, which was going to be, besides, I know you said you write a lot of zombie horror, and you don't necessarily, I don't know if it was that you didn't necessarily like to watch it or read it. Sorry, I just noticed that the text at the bottom thought that I said zombie horror, and it bleeped it out.
Well, that's the next book.
Yeah.
Zombie horror.
So if
Or she eats your face off.
Besides that, what else? What other kinds of apocalyptic horror do you enjoy
Well,
writing about, or
maybe I should amend that I don't enjoy zombie. I do. I like lately. I've been really into the Korean horror on Netflix. All
mm-hmm.
the different, I think it
Yeah.
started with Train to Busan, which blew my
Yes.
mind. I didn't think I would care that much about characters in a zombie film ever, and
Yeah. It was so
it
good.
devastated me.
Yeah.
And so then I, excuse me, I started watching the All of Us Are Dead, which is
Yep.
another zombie series, but it was so cool and so good. And Hellbound and Home Sweet Home or Sweet Home, whatever that was called, which was more monster than zombie. But I think what's really interesting about what they're doing, first of all, their series, they get away with a lot of violence in their series
Mm-hmm.
that we don't try to get away with. But what's interesting to me is that they don't follow all the tropes that we're used to in our Western zombies.
Yep.
So, for instance, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but it seems like every time I'm watching one of these series, one of these movies, I'm always like, okay, that guy's going to live to the end. He's the hero.
Yeah.
He's handsome and strong. And then he dies. Like, big
See, that's I don't want to say that that's a specifically a horror thing too. That is just a like an Eastern film thing in general. It's whoever you think the main character is going to be, they just end up dying before the end of the movie.
It's
and
crazy.
and it happens in a lot, to the point where I start to just be like, okay, well, I like this person, so they must die. And when they don't, I'm really excited, but also like I'm not expecting it.
Right. And it actually undoes my whole, like, I'm watching this to relieve my anxiety because now I'm like, oh no,
Yeah.
no, I love him. Don't kill him. I'm biting my nails. But so I do like some 28 days later. There are some zombie things that I really do enjoy. I don't know if I answered your question or if I went completely off topic.
No. You were answering it. Any other types of apocalyptic fiction besides zombie?
Yeah, so I do. Like I said, I love my creature feature. Give me a Sharknado, love it, love it. But I do like that whole society crumbling, like an under the dome. I liked it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry, I liked it. This whole idea. He did it in Cell too.
Yeah.
Stephen King. Yeah. Which I always wanted to see something happen in Copley. That was so great that book started in Copley Place. I'm like, something really bad should happen
Hmm.
in Copley Place. Just the perfect place for something bad to happen. But yeah, I do like those. I don't know if I'm as into like environmental, because I think that makes me more anxious because I'm the
Mm.
whole time thinking, oh yeah, this could happen. This
Yeah.
really could happen. What
Yeah.
about you? What do you like to read and watch and things?
Um, I definitely like my zombie stuff as well. And in fact, Rob just mentioned one of my favorite series, which is Kingdom, which is a Korean zombie series that takes place in 14th century Korea, and it's just really well done. Um, Definitely a good one to note. But I also, gosh, I like alien invasion stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I I think the alien invasion stuff actually scares me more than zombie. I don't know why. It just unnerves me a little bit. Maybe because it's a little more unknown. Um, but Signs was always that movie. That creeped me out.
Oh, I can't watch that movie again, ever again. It's not so much it creeped me out, just it made me really sad. It was just
Oh
it was heartbreaking. It was really heartbreaking.
yeah, that I have.
M Night gets me. Like I'll be watching an M Night movie and I just break down like halfway
Oh
through. Like he just knows how to.
yeah, I will admit that I like a lot of the movies that people don't like that he's done. Um,
Oh, I like all his stuff. It just like always rips me apart. Always, because he always has that big scene where somebody is overwhelmed with grief.
oh yeah,
In
yeah,
every movie, there's somebody who's like grieving somebody, and it gets me.
yeah,
It knocks me off my feet because I know what that feels like. So I'm just like, oh, I can't do this.
yeah. There's a scene in Lady in the Water that gets me every time, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
Paul
I know what you're talking
Giamatti
about.
crying, and you're like, how can people hate this? How can they hate this? He's wonderful, and he's very
He's
sad,
wonderful. He's
and
wonderful.
um, but I digress. Um, and Scott chimes in immediately with hated signs, lol.
God,
Just
someone has to always, someone
so
has to play devil's advocate.
I was probably 14 or 15 when I saw Signs. I went to the movies with my best friend and we made fun of the entire opening. We're like, huh, this looks like a B science fiction movie, like just the credits, you know? And by the
Mm-hmm.
end, we were both sleeping with the lights on in my living room because we were terrified and leaving water everywhere. So it's just. But yeah, scary. Um, Tom says Scott hates everything. He did say Devil was good, which I have not seen.
Love Devil. So
Um,
good.
what else was I gonna say? Gosh, I moved my paper over here. Well, that actually just brings us to the fourth question, which was apocalyptic horror in film, television, books, games, anything noteworthy to add in terms of things that have inspired you or have, stuck with you.
I mean, I just mentioned all those Korean, but those are the ones that are like fresh on my mind. Um, Again, I like and I know I'm going in a different direction, but I like the mini apocalypse, like the little like midnight mass where
Mm-hmm.
everybody on that little island is a vampire. Again, it's the end of the world for them. It didn't affect everybody, but it did. I loved it. I loved that like small, quiet horror going on.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about myself watching Midnight Mass because I hated that character Beverly. Everybody
Yeah.
hated Beverly.
Yeah, I was gonna
And
say.
then when she walks in and sees Father Paul with a body, I'm not giving much away, but Father Paul saying there's a body in front of him. She walks in and she's like, "Okay, rolled up in a rug. Let's get a shovel." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's me. I've never been more seen." That's me. I'm the zealot who walks in and goes, "Okay, let's fix this," without even asking a question about it. I thought, I've never felt more like a character than this horrible, horrible character. It made me question myself a lot.
She definitely was the like true evil in that in that movie, and very put together in that she knew everything to do and kind of had this little non-emotional psychosis going there, but she was really brilliantly acted by that
Oh
that
yeah, because we
actress.
hated her. She did a
Um,
fantastic job. But it's just like most of us writers, my inner circle is very, very small.
mhm.
We tend to not be very extroverted social
Yeah.
people. You haven't noticed, Kat. So my inner circle is very small. And when you're in my inner circle, I am that person that you can call and say, "Do you have some lime and a shovel?" Don't ask any questions. I
Nice.
don't ask any questions. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm here. That's right.
Good to know. You make problems disappear.
Yeah. If I have to.
Yeah, the quiet horror or the apocalypse on a small scale is definitely one of my favorites too. It's just I think there's something about it it's easier to identify with something happening in a small town versus worldwide, because that scale can just be hard to fathom.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost a little too much, you know. But if you're sort of, you've become familiar with these characters in this town, and something starts happening to them, it sort of eats at you a little bit more, and
Mm-hmm.
there's something really nice about that in a just craft way, um,
Mm-hmm.
when a writer can do
Yeah.
that.
As a writer, you can do like the Bloodlights takes place on Cape Cod because Cape Cod is so isolated.
Yeah.
Once the tourists leave,
Mm-hmm.
there's two ways on and off, so
Yep.
you can really, knock out the Cape quickly. So it's easy as a writer to kind of just. Plus, I lived on Cape Cod, so I was very familiar with it. But it's
Yeah.
easy to kind of deal with that little microcosm, that small little end of the world.
Yeah. Um, we had an earlier talk on Winter Views about small town horror, and we could probably roll that into this conversation as well. Um, that interview was with Tom Deedy, and
Mm.
it was, uh, the idea that you are creating, or drawing from what you know of a small New England town, um, and just really selling it, and then destroying it is it's pretty heart wrenching. Um, and Andreas is mentioning, yes, we do have a similar small scale invasion sort of going on in the movie Signs also.
Mm-hmm.
It is at some point mentioned that it's more of a global thing because they're flipping through the channels and it's showing all the, alien ships showing up in the different cities. But yeah, it's a thing that a lot of people have done, and some have not been as successful. Some definitely stick with you. Um, are there any other things that have inspired your work? Maybe not necessarily apocalyptic fiction, but anything else that you've drawn on that has like helped you write apocalyptic fiction?
Well, speaking of writing what building these small areas, I've always loved horror writing my whole entire. Like, I can't remember a time. My grandmother used to read me Edgar Allan Poe stories as bedtime stories. Like, I've loved horror stories my whole entire life, and as a very young person, I remember being told, "Well, write what you know," and I loved Poe. I loved Clive Barker. Like I wanted to be Clive Barker
Hmm.
and wanted to write like him. And I thought, well, what the heck do I know? Like what do I know about horror? What do I know? And then finally, I got into a class where they assigned Flannery O'Connor,
Hmm.
and we were doing Southern Gothic, and she wrote about the people she knew, but in a grotesque way. Like she
Mm-hmm.
was able to, and it just finally, like, that light bulb went off over my head. That epiphany of like, oh, that's what they mean. They don't mean you survived Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Some crazy rednecks.
Mm-hmm.
And you can build onto that, and that was really highly influential for me.
Nice.
That was like a big turning point.
I actually haven't read any Flannery O'Connor, and I'm a little. I know I'm pretty sad about that. Um, her name has definitely come up many times, um, and I just there's a lot of classics I haven't read, and it's something that I hope to remedy
I'll recommend
soon.
it. And she does short stories. She did have a novella called Wise Blood, but mostly short stories. So it's not like you've invest a ton of time into it. Just read a couple. She's
Okay.
fantastic. It was fantastic. Yeah.
Okay. So besides Wise Blood, is there anything that you would recommend that I go to
The
first?
classic is A Good Man's Hard to Find, and it is great.
Okay.
It's a classic for a reason. That's one they always have everybody read. But really, yeah, no, I would just any of hers. I can't
Okay.
think of a bad one.
Cool.
I really can't.
All right. I definitely will do that. I'm just going to check our time here. We get 20 minutes. Okay. Let's see. What other things can we talk about? How long have you been writing horror, Elaine?
I begged my parents to teach me to write. So I write down the story. I've been writing forever. I've been, I did it all through school and all through high school. I started publishing, my early 20s, I guess, but then took a little break to get my doctorate and
cool.
Had a family and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how cool any of that stuff is.
It's cool to me.
Now my kids are grown and I have more time. I can, they're adults, so I can say either right anytime, and PhD's behind me, so I can focus more. But yeah, unlike many of you, I really do horror. It can be comedic horror, or it can be horror. But I don't branch out. Like, I know so many writers are like, and then I write romance under this name, and I write, that doesn't come out of me. I don't know how. I'm like a tube of toothpaste. You squeeze me, mint comes out. Like, nothing else is going to come out. I don't know how to do those other things. But I do horror, and I do flash fiction.
Okay.
I do short stories. I do novel length. I do it in different types, but that's my area. That's where I'm comfortable.
Cool. What was your most recent publication?
Well, I've just sold a couple, but let me think what came out. Oh, most recent that came out was the Gen X anthology edited by Rebecca Rowland, where all of the authors are Generation X authors. So it was a lot of fun.
Nice.
And you would know a lot of the names in there, Kat, because it's like Rob and a bunch of us.
I was going to say, I think I saw the advertisement at one point.
It's fantastic characters. And I wrote a story about how demonic MTV was back in the day. And about, how when you're younger than I'm, but we used to record videos on VHS tapes.
Oh, yeah, I did that too. Yeah.
Yeah, and you had to have, you had your tape that had all your good videos on it, and if anybody taped anything over that, man.
Yeah, I didn't have taped MTV, but I did have taped episodes of West Wing because I was that person.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
But we used to wait for the video. We would that, and that's how the story begins. They're waiting for the Van Halen Hot for Teacher video. It's guilty.
Nice.
And but you were afraid if you missed it, you wouldn't see it again. You didn't know, and then obviously they played it every hour on the hour, so you were not missing anything. But in your mind, you got all panicky, like, if I don't tape this, I'll never see it again.
Yeah, there's always that panic moment too, where you're like, okay, it's gonna start. And then if something happened, it was horrible. If you ran out of tape, that was always the one that got me.
That was bad.
At the end of the tape.
Really
Yep. But you said you've had a couple of recent sales too. I know you can't really talk about things like that, but we should be on the lookout for any announcements by Elaine soon. So those of you who
exciting stuff.
Yes.
Exciting
Stay
stuff.
tuned. So I think what we'll do is we'll jump into our sort of final questions for the evening. These are very fun but silly questions.
Right.
And the first question is, what is your go-to apocalypse weapon? Zombie apocalypse or alien apocalypse or whatever.
Let me preface that to say, if there were an apocalypse, I'm heading to Walmart and just barricading myself in there, like The Mist, Night of the Comet, where they were in the mall. But I'm going to Walmart because in Florida, the Walmarts have guns, bullets, grenades, pepper spray. You've got a whole militia in Walmart, and then you also have food, to be honestly, this is my plan, and I probably shouldn't say it because everybody's going to steal my plan and ruin it. But my plan is I'm going to have this tricked out paddleboard / kayak that has a sail on it, cup holder, you know, cooler, everything. I'm going to head for the water because zombies don't do well in water, and many monsters will not be doing well in the water. Whatever's going on here on land, I want to get away from it. Traffic's going to be gridlocked. I hate traffic. So I'm just going to head on out and just sail to wherever I can find a safe spot. But now if I say this, now everybody's going to be in their goddamn boats taking up all my spot.
Well, I was going to say a boat is probably... you'd have a little more room in a boat than you would on a paddleboard.
But then people don't come with me. I want to be by myself.
Well, paddleboards are small. I mean, they're big, but they're compared to, you know. And I don't actually sell them, but I work at a store that sells paddleboards, so I see them every single day.
Okay.
And they're like the arm strength also required for paddleboards.
Yeah, but I'm going to get a sail. So when the wind picks up, I'm going to sail. Like little Max and where the wild things are in his little tiny boat. I'm going to go to where the wild things are and have a wild rumpus all by myself.
Nice.
That's my plan.
Back in here again with a comment is Scott, who says boats didn't work so well in the Dawn of the Dead remake, which I have not seen, but I'm assuming.
Yeah, who watches Dawn of the Dead remake anyway? What kind of a monster would sit there and watch that?
And then Nick is chiming in. Nick was on last week's episode. Nick is saying not enough kayak horror out there. So whoever wants to write it first, I will.
I can corner the market.
Yeah.
No, you vultures! I'm copywriting it. It's mine. Back off.
That actually is a pretty awesome idea, but I'm not going to go there.
Well, what's your weapon? What's your weapon? Apocalypse?
My weapon is on the wall over here, and I can't get it off the wall. For the life of me, I've tried. I screwed it into the wall so that it wouldn't fall by accident. But it's well, let's see if we can. I don't know. It won't work. It'll just get blurred out. I'll see if I can get it off the wall. It's a bike gear weapon that my boyfriend made specifically for the apocalypse. And it's here it is. First time on camera.
You got it off the wall. Okay.
I did. There's two.
Yeah.
So there are two, and I can dual wield if necessary. It's got a nice taped handle here. Yeah.
You're ready.
I'm definitely that person in the video games that just goes all in and hacks and slashes, so there's no reason to think I wouldn't do the same thing in real life. in a zombie apocalypse, not just, for fun. So moving on from weaponry, which you didn't actually answer the question about weaponry. You answered a question of what you'd do to survive, but you didn't say what your go-to zombie, apocalypse weapon would be.
I mean, you have to get their brain, you have to get their heads up in their brains. So probably like a machete or a baseball bat where I can bash in their brains. Chainsaws run out, like you have to plug them in or have gas for them. That's not good. So it'd be more something that, can take a lot and still be useful.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then second question, and the follow-up questions. If you were in a community surviving during the dystopian point of an apocalypse, what would your role be?
I am a problem solver. I had years and years as a higher ed administrator. I'm still in higher ed and I moved out of administration, yet somehow I'm still doing administration. I'm that person who will solve. I'm not saying I'd be the leader. I'm not loud enough. I'm not charismatic enough. I'm not going to be the leader. Like I said, I'd be the Bev. I'd be the zealot behind
the fixer.
the leader. You know, like I would align myself with a leader and be right behind them and be solving the problems and completely devoted to them. That would be my role.
Which is to say that if anyone is worried about the end of the apocalypse, you want Elaine on your side, and not on the other side at all, because you never know what's going to happen.
That's right.
Let me just check in here and see where we are on our time. 51. We still have so much time. What else can we talk about that has to do with...
Did anyone have any questions?
Yeah. Does anyone in the chat have any questions? We went on kayak horror for a while in the comments here. There's yes, and in fact, Scott said Wicked Kayaks is the next Antho.
Yay!
And then Rob mentioned Zomboat, which is on Hulu, which I thought I had heard about.
That one.
But I haven't seen that.
Awesome. On Hulu, wow.
Yeah, I have to check that out.
Oh, I'm all over that.
And then Nick mentioned, he says, I love the storyline in the World War Z book of the crews clearing the ocean floor. So that, and I still haven't read the book. I've seen the movie, but apparently that means that there are zombies on the ocean floor.
Oh, okay.
Which would make sense because they wouldn't be able to die. So if...
Yeah, but they're all so decomposed. I don't see how water would help them.
Yeah, I guess...
They're like, I
don't
can't
know.
imagine that their skin wouldn't just flake off.
Yeah.
In the water.
I don't know.
And
That's
it's so stupid sometimes. Most of them are stupid. You think they would...
I'll have to... need to get that to read that. We talked about that book last week. Tom says, talk about Serpent and the Rainbow. Which I haven't seen.
Zombie, that's the voodoo zombie.
Yeah.
That's the voodoo zombies, but those are more like slave zombies, like what Jeffrey Dahmer was trying to do.
I never saw that movie, but I do remember the cover for that VHS and the trailer for it, which I saw when I was way too young, and that has like haunted my dreams for a long time.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in ages and ages, but I just know, I mean, but those are all based on real, there are real voodoo zombies. I mean, zombies they can be real. Like toxoplasm, half of us are infected by it because of our cats. So we could all be turning into zombies any day now.
Yeah. Okay. I'm surprised I'm not already there.
My paddleboard already.
Well, there's another story. Is the zombie apocalypse caused by cats?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course it'll be caused by cats. What else?
Yeah. And then they'll take over the world.
They're just waiting.
They are.
Beware the patient cats.
Mm-hmm.
They're in it for the long con. They've got a good con going. Come on.
They do.
They've already got it really good.
They really do. I just spent $1,400 on mine over the last week and a half. Yeah. He's and now he's doing better. Like like the next day he was better. And I just don't understand. But again, there's that long con thing. Maybe that's part of the whole plan is to, make people go broke and then go crazy, and then world domination is theirs. There's, oh my god, there's just this whole, the ocean floor thing is still going on. in the comments. We've got there are.
Well, it is kind of cool.
It is cool. You know, Andreas mentioned instead of a small boat, you could use a luxury cruiser, 20 stories high. You need something to start civilization anew, I guess, if you were trying to start a community out on the water, I guess. And then...
If that's what you wanted, yeah.
And then Rob is calling that the zombie yacht apocalypse.
I mean, you know how cruise people are. Who wants to be stuck with a bunch of cruise people?
Yeah, right?
Apocalypse?
Yeah, I agree. That might be a bit much. Rob is... Wait, there was a comment here. It was like, Nick was saying there are hazard teams near the shore of the ocean who had to clean up the zombie bodies in the book, World War Z.
Okay.
So that's what he was talking about.
Oh, okay.
And then Rob is saying the temperature down at the ocean floor gets to around 34 degrees, which is low enough to halt bacterial decomposition.
Oh, Rob, stop it.
They'd be bloated and waterlogged as hell, but unless local fauna had been feeding on them, they would technically be fine. And then says, I may have just fractured my nerd bone.
Yeah. Smarty pants.
I feel like this is the most active the chat has been in a while on one of these streams, so this is actually quite fun.
Well, I'm glad we gave everyone food for thought.
Oh, yeah. There's all kinds of ideas brewing for stories here.
Oh, awesome. Make sure I get credit.
Oh, yes, everybody. If you
I better be in the acknowledgements.
If you do write a kayak zombie horror or a, luxury liner horror.
No. I'm sorry, Kat. It's Zayak. It's kayak zombie horror.
That's right. Zombie horror. Yeah. Which is even weirder now.
Yeah, now it's getting really
I've got that image in my head now. So I think we're going to come to the end of our program on that note. And so I just want to say thank you, Elaine, for spending your time talking.
Thank you. This is so much fun.
Talking about all these ridiculously fun ideas of how the apocalypse could start. And sharing some of your wisdom about what you have written and where you get your ideas from. It's been really awesome talking with you about that.
With you as well.
And thank you for the chat, for all of you're still going. Jeez. They're just still going. I don't even know what's happening right now. There's just some weird, like, Gilligan's Island has come up in the last...
Oh, that's good. Okay, I'm sorry. That's really good.
And
that's
then,
really good.
I think...
Now I'm thinking about the Love Boat, too.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot. There's a lot that could go on here. That's really good.
The best comment that I've seen so far is World Horsey.
Now I have my next year's Halloween costume.
God. Oh, God. All right, guys. Thank you. Thanks for all of this, which is still going. And
thank you for participating.
Yes, thanks for participating and just keeping it light and fun as always. And we're gonna do this again next week, as it turns out. The last episode, technically the last episode of Winter Views, is going to be next Thursday, March 24th, at 8 p.m. We're going to be talking with Scott Baker about apocalypse horror again.
So keep your kayak stories ready.
Yep, he will have no idea what any of that is. So probably don't confuse him with kayak horror or horror, zombie horror stuff.
Horror.
Yeah. But we'll see you then if you decide to come out. Hopefully you do. And I hope you all have a good night and happy St. Patty's Day too, because we didn't mention that.